Kitco Mining special coverage of BMO's 33rd Global Metals, Mining and Critical Minerals Conference is brought to you by First Majestic Silver.
Explorations, not acquisitions, is the Barrick Gold recipe. This is Paul Harris for Kitco Mining at the BMO Metals, Mining and Critical Minerals Conference in Hollywood, Florida. And joining me today is Mark Bristow, President and CEO of Barrick Gold. Mark, welcome back to Kitco.
Thank you. Hello, Paul.
Before we start talking specifically about Barrick, I'd like to talk a little bit about the market in general. Gold has closed over $2,000 per ounce for the past 11 weeks now. It's been a fantastic 3 months for physical gold, but gold equities continue to be in a slump. Why do you think that is? What is the message you're getting from investors here at BMO?
You know, I've always said if you want to create value in mining, you got to replace the ore bodies that you mine. And if you're going to do any M&A, it's got to be accretive. It's got to really add value. And I don't think we've been doing a good job on that as the gold mining industry in particular.
Okay. Now, Barrick has pioneered giving multi-year guidance. You've had a sober shareholder returns policy, and you've had a focus on organic exploration growth rather than buying growth. What else can you do to get investors more interested?
I think you've got to build that runway, and that's what we set out to do back in 2019. A real focus on replacing the gold that we mine, and the copper, by the way. And if you look back to where we started, and today we've added 44 million ounces of gold and replaced all the copper we've mined over those 5 years at the same quality, so same grade. And despite the fact that we've had a fairly flat performance in our equity, we've really built value, and we've done no value destructive transactions. And now, when you look at our portfolio, and particularly our exploration capacity, and you know, the way we run it is we don't increase the exploration budget. We've really invested in the quality of our explorers, and that's really what adds value in mining.
I think the point you make about the reserve replacing your depletion is a very valid one. Over the course of the last decade, Barrick's production has fallen, and you seem to be now at a level where you can sustainably replace that depletion, albeit at a lower level. Is that the way forward?
Yeah, I think, Paul, that's what happens when you have aspirations as a gold miner to go to 7, 8, 9 million ounces with multiple numbers of small, short life mines, is you keep building this cliff in front of you. And it's inevitable that you run out of production. And that's what happened post-2011. Remember, post-2011, all the big gold miners went and bought and had aspirations to be 9 million ounce producers. And there was a flurry of M&A, some of it with premium paper and some of it with cash. And then in 2015, when the gold price went down, we had all these big write-downs. You know, the industry wrote off about $70 billion and never really got that back, and just continued to keep merging and without replacing. And so that's led to this cliff and more M&A. And I think I know what we set out to do back in 2019 is rebuild Barrick back to that original Barrick, which is all about value rather than size.
It does sound like, in some ways, you could sum up what you've just said as gold companies grew and became too big to succeed. And to what extent do you think that's still the case in the sector?
No, I think right now everyone's ex-growth. And that's the focus that Barrick has, is to grow our future. And that is, first of all, you grow the runway, you extend the life of the mine, and then you add to it. And you add to it through M&A is an option if you can get it at the right price. Otherwise, you've got to find it. And to find it, you've got to have great geologists. And to have great geologists, you've got to invest in people. And, I think the mining industry is X growth when it comes to its own production, and it's also underinvested in people. And so that's what we've been doing in the last 5 years, investing in our business, investing in our people, and investing in our future.
It does seem there's a bit of a conundrum here, in as much as you still hear investors say there's too many gold companies, there needs to be consolidation. But when there's consolidation, companies arguably get too big and the value is just not there, or they're not able to generate the value that investors want. How do we break this sort of cycle about what investors want?
I think that's sort of a generalization. I do believe that there's too many management teams with managing too few assets. The challenge is the quality of those assets, and it's hard to consolidate the sort of middle band of the industry at the moment, because you've got a few very good assets embedded in very average asset portfolios, so it's hard to get to it. And the junior market has got itself caught up in production, where, as you know, a healthy exploration junior market in mining has been this sort of feeder of the bigger miners for many, many years. But, you know, in the last decade, we've seen a lot of junior miners bet on smaller deposits which none of the big miners wanted to buy, so they ended up building them itself, and that takes away, you know, very agile juniors that always bring opportunities to an industry like the gold industry.
But part of that is arguably because the smaller companies have had such a hard time raising the capital to do the exploration, they've had to find different routes.
Yeah, I would say, you know, I always bang on about short-termism. And I think what you've seen, and we've seen it again in the last 4 years, where the fund managers look to short-term returns, and they starve the industry of its ability to invest in the long term. And so, and again, the trading in the market for instant gratification again shortens the horizon. And when mining executives fall for that, you really take away your future. And I think we're all the industry itself, and I would say the broader mining industry has really been impacted by that short-termism.
Okay, you've said you won't pay a premium to buy another company. To what extent or not does that potentially shut doors to Barrick Gold in terms of potential opportunities?
Well, I think it's, you know, we're very clear about our discipline and our filters that we apply. And, you know, it's all about the definition of a premium. You know, for good assets, you have to pay up. And if they're good assets, they usually have opportunities to add to those assets or grow them or expand them. And so, you know, I've done all the M&A transactions I've done in my career. I can honestly look back to them and show you the value that we've added through the 40 years I've been around. But there are not many that we've done, but it's not that we don't try. And I think for me, we're seeing it again. You know, you can't, a mining company getting big for big sake is not a sustainable strategy, I don't believe.
So Barrick, let's say 5 million ounces a year, is that a sustainable size?
Well, I think the thing that we really set as a target back in 2019 is my point that I shared with John Thornton at the time, is that if you really want to grow a mining company, and you have to be able to grow to remain relevant in a public market, you need to look to the bigger deposits, and so it takes you to porphyries. So it takes gold mining into the copper domain, and because, you know, you want to get bigger, but you don't want to have a gazillion mines to operate. So that's the only way that you can really be effective is look for bigger mines, and bigger mines are harder to find.
That makes a lot of sense, having a multi-decade asset that can
Yeah.
produce and produce and produce. Now, it's a strategic aim for Barrick to get more copper, and you have the Reko Diq project in Pakistan and the Lumwana super pit. They're both due on stream in 2028. You've also made some investments in earlier stage junior companies, where the best case scenario, any copper is going to be at least 20 years away. Why isn't Barrick making investments in sort of more advanced stage copper projects like Zijin's doing? It's putting some big money into some projects where potentially there is going to be production coming out in 5 or 10 years' time.
Yeah, so now you can really look at Reko Diq. That's a lot less than 10 years' time. So you can still develop projects in around the world in shorter time. And I think our permitting of Gold Rush is a good sign for mining in the United States, for instance. But for me, what we set out to build is a sustainable, infinite business in Barrick. That's what and it really, if you go back into the last century when Barrick was first incorporated under Bob Smith and Peter Munk, it created a huge value through exploration, discovery, and early stage M&A. And I copied it in Randgold. I copied that same philosophy just in North Africa. So that's what we got to do again. And remember, in mining, you need to invest for future generations. And we plan not only for long-term assets, but for succession and a continuation of this infinite vision for Barrick, and that is to grow it into a substantial, sustainable, valued organization.
We've certainly done that in some assets. Pueblo Viejo in Dominican Republic, having that extension there, and you're generating a lot of excitement in the industry with the exploration in northern Nevada, where you've got the Nevada Gold Mines joint venture and some specific Barrick assets as well. What is going to be the sort of next step there, the next big thing that comes out of northern Nevada?
So, I think the next big step is we've got to fix the PV expansion, and that's really around the conveyor belt, which we're busy replacing. So we've got some immediate actions to continue our journey of growing our production. In Nevada itself, we've added a lot of ounces. We're very comfortable with our brownfields 5-year horizon, replacing the gold that we mine, and we've got Gold Rush now up and ramping up, and it's going to be a 4-year exercise to ramp up to around 400,000 ounces. And then we've got the 4 Mile project right next door, which is 100%, to your point, owned by Barrick. And we have committed $42 million this year to take it to a pre-feasibility level. And we'll make that decision at the end of this year. And the thing that I'm absolutely convinced about is that we've got more 4 Miles around in that district, and in Turquoise Ridge as well. We've now opened the ore bodies in both directions, and you're going to continue to see this. I've challenged the team, and this year we're going to be spending 60% of our budget on greenfields.
I think one of the interesting things, I think it was in your results conference call, you mentioned, and hopefully I get the figures correct, you want the team there, 15% of the budget has to be on drill holes that are not within 200 meters of another drill hole. To really force them to take those
big
intellectual
step
outs, to make, hopefully discover something new.
And we've got, we're drilling in South Peru. We've got some pretty nice targets there. We've got some very interesting ground opening up in Tanzania. which again will some of it extensions to the current mines, both North Mara and Bulyanhulu, but not extensions to the ore bodies, new potential additions. And then, greenfields permits in across Tanzania particularly.
Okay, let's focus on Latin America, if I may. You mentioned Peru, also starting to explore or planning to explore in Ecuador. Argentina seems to be becoming interesting again. You've still got the Pascua project in Chile, and also I think Guyana's still on your radar as a good potential.
Yeah,
region.
we've done some work in Guyana. We have just established and secured some really exciting exploration ground in Ecuador. We like Peru, particularly where we are in Peru. We've cleaned up the legacy Barrick portfolio that's been around for a long time. We still have a real focus around Valadero because just to add life wherever we can. So we've got a dedicated team there. And we added 2 years of life there last year.
That's Argentina?
Yes, Argentina. And then Chile we're looking at Chile's been an interesting place because it sort of went into a bit of a trough. And that's always a good time to establish yourself or re-establish oneself. And we've been doing that. We've invested a lot in the old Pascua Lama legacy and our license to operate in that area. And we've taken the old Pascua to closure, and then we're looking to reevaluate that project in a different form going forward.
And what would a potential new form or rebirth of Pascua potentially look like?
Yeah, Paul, I think we've still got work to do before we can sort of frame that. I have said to the market, back end of this year, we should be able to give them some sort of feel in the form of a scope study, and then we can take it from there.
Okay. Closing things up, Mark, what are some of Barrick's main goals for this year? Where do you want Barrick Gold to be at the end of the year?
For me, it's we need to build the flexibility in our underground development in Nevada. That's the last step to build flexibility in our underground mines. We've been struggling to get ahead of ourselves, and we've brought in some contractors to help us. And after that, already during this year, I want to demonstrate our ability to bring these costs down, because we've been investing in infrastructure and extending the life of these operations. And so in our profile, we get back down to just over $1,000 an ounce all-in sustaining costs, and that's where you should be. That's where those assets should be ultimately. And all the investments we made will support that for the long term. So that's an important one. Fixed PV, that's a real must. For me, I want to secure new ground within the Central African Copper Belt. Our teams are working hard to do that. We've got some exciting new opportunities in Saudi that we want to pursue. We also have some joint ventures we were talking about around and adjacent to Reko Diq with some of our partners in Pakistan. And really, that's the focus. And I think I know we've got the teams now that are capable to do it. And each one of our regions have great executive teams that can easily build a mine. And so we've got one being built in Mark's team in Latin Asia Pacific. Seb's got his focus on Lumwana. We need something for the North American team to chew on. And ideally, in the short term, it will more than likely be Canada.
Well, I wish you the best of luck on that and look forward to finding out more as and when these aspects materialise. Mark, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you for having me.
And this is Paul Harris for Kitco Mining at BMO Metals Mining and Critical Minerals Conference in Hollywood, Florida. And if you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe.
Kitco Mining's special coverage of BMO's 33rd Global Metals, Mining and Critical Minerals Conference is brought to you by First Majestic Silver.